Good afternoon to you. Mark Sott of HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion for Tuesday, September 24th, 2019. We have a lot going on in the tropics, a lot to keep us busy, watching and wondering what's going to happen next. Busy just like we thought it would be as we close out the month of September, and likely to stay busy as we get into October. So let's get rid of me just for a little bit, at least my picture there, and take a look at the starting point for today, the National Hurricane Center homepage. And you can see we have 3 named storms at the same time. Pretty busy, and in fact September has been one of the busiest on record. I have to look it up and see where we stand, but I believe 7 named storms so far in September, if I think so, something like that, and a lot of ace points generated. You know, very, very busy overall. So what do we got? Well, right off the north tip of the Yucatan Peninsula, a weak area of low pressure, very disorganized, some slow development. You just never know over the Gulf. This is expected to move in this general direction here over the next several days and not amount to too much, but it could provide some rain showers for parts of Mexico, squalls, what have you, but low chance of development overall, and that certainly is good news. We also have Jerry, of course, which is west and southwest of Bermuda. We'll take a look at a satellite animation in a moment. And then Karen, the all of a sudden overachiever of the day, and we'll look at that closely. And then Lorenzo out here, which is destined to become a very powerful hurricane, and almost certainly is going to stay out in the Atlantic and do something like this, you know, and I can draw in, you know, an alleyway, probably something like that would be a good error, you know, around where I'm projecting. That just makes sense based on the models. This is not like, oh wow, Mark is really smart, he comes up with these tracks. I just look at the modeling, and that's what the guidance suggests. There's going to be a weakness out here, ridging over the eastern Atlantic, strong ridging over the western Atlantic, trough in between. So there you go. It just makes sense. All right, so looking at the different players, Jerry from the 2 p.m. intermediate advisory, weakening. Winds are now 50 miles per hour. It's moving slowly. Pressure's up to 992. This will bring some impacts to Bermuda in the form of heavy rain, some squally conditions from time to time. But Jerry is not expected to be a hurricane, unlike what Umberto brought to the region. Then we have Karen down here, closing in on Puerto Rico, and the pressure down a little bit, now 1,005 millibars, winds and some of those squalls around 45 miles per hour, especially in elevated areas, and a lot of heavy rain coming here associated with Karen. Lorenzo does not have any intermediate advisories happening because there are no watches and warnings in effect. So we get the updates here every 6 hours for Lorenzo. And just to show you the track of Lorenzo over the next several days, maybe, if it'll ever load, my internet just seems to be stuck. Perfect. Well, it's moving there. Whatever. Lorenzo's going to probably stay out to sea. There we go. All right. Major hurricane forecast for Lorenzo, and this will pile up a lot of ace points, accumulated cyclone energy, and that is important to the scientific community because it shows us, as I mentioned the other day, the quality of the systems that are forming, and this one formed in the main development region, right in the wheelhouse of where expected development would occur this time of year, and so this is important to know that this part of the Atlantic Basin is generally favorable for development because, boom, here we go. We're going to get a hurricane out of it with Lorenzo. All right, so instead of looking at the track and whatnot with Jerry and Karen, let's move on to the satellite presentation because this is very telling. All right, so in the big picture here, courtesy of Levi Cowan and his incredible coding skills at tropicaltidbits.com, there we have the gigantic envelope of energy associated with Lorenzo, and this looks very much like a developing typhoon in the Pacific. Typhoons and hurricanes are the same exact species, if you will, of weather phenomenon, but they have different characteristics because of the basins that they are in Typically because of the sprawling, open nature of the Pacific, the typhoons tend to be larger overall. They have a larger area to work with of warm water, less land mass impediments. And in this case, a very strong and large piece of energy, this tropical wave, came off Africa, and it has developed into this tropical storm, and it is destined to become very, very powerful out over the Atlantic. Then we have Karen, which we're going to take a close-up look at in a moment. And then there's the naked swirl now of Jerry, really getting beaten up by strong winds. The vortex is getting sheared, and just not having a good day of it there with Jerry, which is great for Bermuda. Kind of cloudy and overall inclement weather there. There's Bermuda right there, and overcast, the low pressure area well to your west-southwest. So again, rain showers. Fresh water is always needed as long as it's not too much, and it shouldn't intensify much at all. And it's just a weird pattern going on. You can see this upper level low here. We've got this ridge that's going to try to build in over the western Atlantic over time. We have Karen down here, which is trying to overachieve today compared to what we saw yesterday. It's just amazing. So let's zoom in and take a look at this fascinating radar. And this comes to us from a grad student down there at Florida State University, Mark Nissenbaum. I hope I said his name right. And he's put together this wonderful set of animations that different people tweet from time to time. And I finally pulled it up here. I've been meaning to do this. And here it is. And so this is great because we can get a broad perspective, what he calls the fit-to-screen mode. Then you can go to full size. Yeah. Man, if I could code like this. Wow. And if I was the only guy in the world that could do it, I'd be a millionaire. And all that that implies. But you know what? It's great to know that there are people out there who are smarter and more gifted in certain areas than I am. You know, and we like that. I like the crowdsourcing of information, and it's fine not to be able to do everything. You got to learn sometimes. You can't do it all. And these talents here from Levi, and in this case, Mr. Nissenbaum at Florida State, they're down there, Seminole country, they are doing a great job. So what do we have? Well, this is very telling. First of all, have St. Croix down here, and St. Thomas, St. John up here. Calabria, I believe that is, and then the island of Puerto Rico. And rain showers earlier today were plaguing this region, as well as down here in St. Croix. But that seems to be abating because what happened? Well, this looks like the ghost of the old low-level center, and then vigorous convection ensued, and now we've got this band coming in, and the low-level center seems to be taking over around 66 degrees of longitude. And if you know your lat long, and it's easy to find here, there's 66 longitude right there. All right, I'll try to draw as straight a line as possible. So right up the middle there, that's the 66 degree line of longitude. Let's shrink this down a little bit. And again, it's about right there. And the center of circulation tucked in here roughly. Now, it's not very well organized, but definitely better organized than it was yesterday. We've got this strong band on the northwest side, deep convection wrapping in on the southern side, choked off a little bit because the island is in the way for inflow, but a lot of rain is coming, and this is going to move over Puerto Rico fairly slowly. So it's going to be a rough night. You know, you think about Ponce, San Juan, Humacao, all those areas, right? It's going to be rough with a lot of heavy rain, occasional gusty winds. So your gullies and guts and washes and whatever you call them down there, streams, creeks, rivers, they are going to fill up rather quickly with this fairly slow moving, and we're talking less than 10 miles per hour forward motion from Karen. Now, a very important thing about this. Let's go back and look at the Hurricane Center info on Karen, and let's read the public advisory here. It says, they say slightly stronger, we know that. So it's moving north or 0 degrees, compass heading of 0 degrees at 8 miles per hour. And the lat long was 17.5 and 66. All right, so 17.5 is roughly right here. and 66 is right there. So the center of circulation right in here somewhere, roughly. The geographic center of the overall envelope of vorticity. That's the best way to think of it. And it's moving north. Now this is very important because some of the modeling was suggesting that the center would be over here, moving generally off to the north, not over here. And that little bit of distance there, yeah, maybe, let's see, a degree of lat long is roughly 60 miles down in this part of the world. So, maybe, what is that, 64 to 66, 120 miles difference. And we can be conservative and call it maybe it's 100 miles more to the west than some of the modeling was indicating, and I'll show you that in just a moment. So what changed so that we go from yesterday, it was like, very messy looking, to much more robust today? Well, with the beauty of these tools, I can show you what changed. Upper level winds, I know this is hard to discern what we're looking at, so let's zoom in here. This is where Karen is located, right here. And this green through here are upper level winds that are favorable. Generally speaking, this is the analysis product from the University of Wisconsin site. Green is go, yellow is like slow down, right? And red means stop. Generally speaking, it ain't happening. So in this case, Karen all of a sudden has found this building area of anticyclonic flow, a little bit of ridge, upper level ridging. And the green is generally light shear, 15 knots or less. And Karen down here just on the edge of that, and is moving into a less sheared environment. So that's going to do, perhaps, a couple of things that are very important for the future of Karen. If it doesn't die off completely over Puerto Rico, which I guess it could, it doesn't seem likely because it's not that strong to begin with. When you bring an intense hurricane into a landmass, you wreck that engine, and it's hard for it to come back. But when they are not very strong to begin with, and they still have a high ceiling that they're working towards, and generally speaking, that's what Karen is trying to do in the atmosphere, is it's trying to work towards that high ceiling, whatever limitations notwithstanding down there. The upper level winds are not ideal, but they're not terrible. Water temperatures are very warm. Not a lot of dry air down there. There might be some, but conditions are okay. So it's trying to get to whatever the ceiling would be. Probably trying to become a hurricane if it could. But what are the limiting factors? Land, some shear, etc. So if it survives going over Puerto Rico, and it's not moving at 2 miles per hour, it's moving at 8, so it'll get there, then this environment up here to the north of Puerto Rico seems to be improving. So that it is doing well right now for itself, and we can see that again over here on the radar. Pretty good vortex, it's intact, etc. So that should survive. And as that moves out and away from Puerto Rico, up here, the vortex and the low-level circulation should still be there, and it lives to fight another day. And that's what's important going forward, because it's not very, very weak and convection-free and whatnot. So that brings me to the modeling now. Okay, so we looked at this. We said, okay, upper-level winds in the vicinity of where it's headed, not too bad, for this to develop a little bit more. Now I'm going to do something fairly unusual. We're only going to look at the next couple of days with this instead of a week out or whatever, 5 days even, and I'll show you why. So this is the analysis here from the Euro, the ECMWF, 850 millibar cyclonic vorticity, and here's Jerry up here hanging on. We already looked at that. There's not much convection with it, and I'm not too worried about Bermuda in terms of major impacts. Yes, we need to always keep heavy rain in mind, and we don't want to discount that as a possibility, but it's looking a lot better for Bermuda in terms of serious impacts. Now, it's hard to discern exactly where the low-level center is in this analysis here, and that's what this is. This is the analysis. But the Euro seems to suggest that the center of circulation is here, just to the southwest of the Virgin Islands. It's just a little bit more to the west, about right there. Not big, but notable. All right? That's important. And so let's put a dot where the center of circulation is today. Right there. All right? Right there. So that's where we are in the analysis. And this is what it looks like 24 hours out. Now, is this, you see where it is. The center of circulation maybe is up here now. So I wonder if that's going to be where it is. Because now placement becomes huge for later on. Honestly, it does. And if we go, that's 24. Now we go to 48 hours. It's a little bit weaker overall in the model field. And there it is there. So let's back this up. See what happens. The track seems to want to follow that in the modeling. Right? So, if you shift everything over, it could have big ramifications down the road in terms of shear, the track, the intensity, all kinds of things. So there's no reason to go look at 72, 96, 120, and so forth, because I don't know that it's going to really be right there in 48 hours. It could very well be sitting over here somewhere. We will have to wait and see. That is going to be very, very important for the evolution coming up. All right? So something to keep an eye on. And this is a great link to follow. I'm going to put this in the description of today's video of this particular radar loop. All right? So, wow. All right, so we are coming up on the 1-year anniversary. We've already passed Florence. Now we're coming up on Michael on October the 10th. I haven't mentioned this in a while. A couple people emailed me, hey, Mark, can you put a link to your documentary? I've been hearing about it, but I can't find it. And so there you go. Thanks for emailing me. One person was from the Panhandle of Florida, and another was actually over in the UK. And yes, it is available in the UK and the US on Amazon Prime. That is Tracking the Hurricanes 2018, the documentary covering last year. Some of the most poignant, incredible POV footage that you will ever see of hurricanes. Category 1 Florence and Category 5 Michael, presented in a way that will just leave you stunned and hopefully impressed at the use of technology. My team and I, a great group of people. So go on Amazon Prime Video. You know, it's $4 to rent, $13 to purchase and own forever and ever off the digital cloud. And you can watch it on any device that plays Amazon videos. The 2017 edition is on there as well. And I've done these all the way back to 2004, but the older ones are going to be harder to put on here because they're a different format. They're 4x3. And, you know, it's just, I don't know. We'll see. We're working on some other things for next year, which I'll talk about in a separate video coming up hopefully later this week. But anyway, there you go. Thanks for the mention there, the email from Florida and the UK. That's how you find it. Search Tracking the Hurricanes 2018. I'll put a link to this as well in the description. And hey, thanks for supporting my my efforts by getting the video one way or the other, rent or purchase, either way. It helps, and I appreciate it very much. It allows us to do more than ever before. So a lot to keep up with. Again, nothing, we don't have any intense hurricanes out there, but this seriousness of what's happening with the rain in Puerto Rico, it could be problematic. You know, they are still recovering, 2 years later now after the effects a little bit from Irma, of course in the Virgin Islands, very much from Irma, and then coming up on Maria time frame here. Actually, I guess we passed that already, if I'm not mistaken. And they're still dealing with that. And so, any kind of tropical cyclone activity is a problem still for people in Puerto Rico. Whether or not you had Irma and Maria, you got to take all of these seriously. So let's see what happens over the coming days, or day or two, really, one day at a time now, and we will go from there. Sounds good? All right, I'm out. I appreciate you tuning in as always. Don't forget to subscribe, and as I hear people say when my kids watch videos on YouTube, hit the notification button. I guess it's a bell. Ring the bell if you want to be notified when I post something. And the same goes for our Patreon supporters. if you are one of our patrons, make sure you have notifications enabled in the Patreon app and what have you, so that you get notified when I post something on Patreon. All right? Have yourselves a great rest of your Tuesday. Again, thanks for watching. As always, I appreciate it more than you know. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. I'll have more for you tomorrow.